broadcasting from the ARN Racing Studios in Southern California, ARN, Los Angeles. This is ARN, the American Racing Network.
Driver! Start your engine!
Kurt Busch was running 9th, then this went on off turn 4.
Did we hit the commitment cone? Sorry about all that, not what we needed.
Brian Newman in some trouble, flat left rear tire.
Yellows out. I can shift. My hand might be bloody by the end of this, but I can shift.
The shifter lever has broken off inside that 47 car.
Matt Kenseth pulling a page from Kurt. Doesn't hit if they got real lucky there, but these are all mistakes. They can't have these mistakes anymore.
Matt Kenseth is now to go for Jeff Johnson. Looks tail up low, push up high. Here they come. Get in, sit down. Shut up, hold on, drivers. Start your engine.
3 races in, and 4 drivers bite the dust. There were 16, now there are only 12. Coming up tonight on the Pit Pass, we take a look at the chase after 3 races. Jeff Gordon's win over this last weekend out in Dover at the Monster Mile, his 4th win of the season, 92nd of his career. Plus, we actually take a look at the Tony Stewart press conference. He met with the media today, answered some of the hard questions, and we got a closer glimpse as to what happened that night and to what's going on with Tony Stewart. Is he thinking retirement, or is he backing off racing altogether? Plus, Kevin Ward Jr.'s aunt weighs in a public forum, and yes, we'll be taking your comments on this as well. This is the Pit Pass, your personal pass for everything NASCAR, right here on ARN. Don't go anywhere.
Get ready.
Stay ready.
Wrap in. And hold on.
Stay ready. Stay ready.
We're getting the green, starting right
Ready.
now.
How we need to do it, boys. That was awesome. Yeah. We're either going to get them or we're going to wreck. 4 times, a little upset. Dude, I left the room. What the hell?
Pisses me off so much. You have no idea.
That was a bull.
You never quit. This is how you're going to win a championship. You never quit.
Yes, we're going to keep scratching off that bucket list for you, buddy.
Stay in it. Wide open. Come on. Come on, baby. How about that, boys?
You're awesome.
The chase is on ARN, the Motorsports Authority. Now, your host, Alan Bailey.
3 races in, we can officially say that 4 drivers bite the dust. AJ Allmendinger, Kurt Busch, Greg Biffle, Eric Almirola, all now eliminated from the chase after 3 races. The first round of the chase officially in the books. Welcome on in to the Pit Pass, your personal pass for everything NASCAR, right here on ARN. The Challenger round officially in the books. Jeff Gordon winning at Dover over this last weekend. It was a good race overall, very good race, but a very interesting roller coaster type race, as the first leg of the chase, so to speak, the first round of the chase is now officially in the books. We'll talk about Allmendinger, Busch, Biffle, and Almirola's seasons, kind of put a pin on that and just move forward after this. Lots of interesting things happening. Tony Stewart met with the media today. Kevin Ward Jr.'s aunt opened up and basically wrote a very interesting letter that a lot of you have a lot of interesting things to say about. We will discuss, we'll break it down. Yes, we will get into some of the evidence on the Tony Stewart stuff as well. And yeah, we'll actually talk about everything that happened in Stewart's press conference. Not only your reaction, but media and people who don't know racing's reaction, and why we may or may not need to correct them on that, and why Jeff Gordon might actually be the favorite, but there's a couple of guys that might have a thing or two to say about that. Yeah, we'll break it all down. It's not exactly a runaway by any stretch of the imagination. I want to tell you, the Twitter and the Facebook handles at the Alan Bailey. You can use the hashtag ARNRace to get in on this conversation as well. But in order to kick off the show the correct way, we need to start with our hot topics. And leading off the hot topics, the fact that Jeff Gordon won the AAA 400 at the Dover International Speedway, 4th win of his career, 5th at Dover, his first win at Dover since 2001, believe it or not. It was his 92nd career win, and it's the 17th Dover win for Hendrick Motorsports, the most for any team. Gordon ended up taking the checkered flag. Keselowski came home second, followed by Jeff Gordon's teammate Jimmy Johnson, Joey Logano, Matt Kenseth, Kyle Larson, Martin Truex Jr., Ryan Newman, Clint Bowyer, and yes, Kyle Busch, rounding out your top 10. Now, pole sitter Kevin Harvick led most of the race. He led over half the race, actually. 223 laps he led, but he had a valve stem come off on that left front tire around lap number 252, causing damage to the splitter when he was driving around on the racetrack. He finished 13th, one lap down. The contender round starting this weekend. Who is in? Well, putting it simply, Brad Keselowski, Logano, Gordon, Harvick, Johnson, Busch, Dale Earnhardt Jr., you have Matt Kenseth, Ryan Newman, Carl Edwards, Denny Hamlin, and Casey Kane all advancing. Those 12 drivers advance, however, the 4 that are remaining outside of the chase tonight, and that is AJ Allmendinger, Kurt Busch, Greg Biffle, and Eric Almirola. Very big race over this last weekend. We'll break it all down later on in the program. And yes, Tony Stewart holding a press conference out at Stewart-Haas Racing today, not to talk about any sponsor changes or not to more or less announce his retirement from racing, but instead to talk about the fact that, well, yeah, everything that happened with Kevin Ward and the prosecutor's ruling last week, he just wanted to get it all out there, get it all off of his chest, and try to move on. We'll have that audio for you a little bit later on in the program. Also, over this weekend, in case you didn't notice or in case you missed it, Kevin Ward Jr.'s aunt actually released a statement over this last weekend in an open letter. Wendy Ward opened up and, yes, talked about everything that happened with her nephew and with Tony Stewart, and yes, we'll have that for you a little bit later on in the program as well. Want to remind you that if you're looking for a brand new website, here's what you do. You have to log on to apolloaesthetics.com. Don't bother with one of these build your own website for frees, because guess what? By the time you've paid all the hidden fees, you're being charged an arm and a leg, and your website was built by you, and let's face it, you're no web designer. It's not built correctly. Things don't work, information's incorrect, spelling errors, just issues left and right. Here's what you do. Log on to Apollo Aesthetics, where they can build you a custom website that looks unique for your business. Plus, with the holiday season right around the corner, you need to make sure you're ready to sell your product online. Those free website builders can't really handle building a shop so that you can start selling your products online. You have to go through a third party, which costs a lot of money, and it costs you even more money when you try to get it set up on your free website. Don't go through all the pain, all the hassle. Log on to apolloaesthetics.com right now to request that quote to build you that website. That's Apollo Aesthetics and apolloaesthetics.com. Tell them ARN sent you for a very special gift. When we get back, we will have the Tony Stewart press conference from Stewart-Haas Racing earlier today. He answered some hard-hitting questions like, is he going to be retiring soon? And yes, does the fact that Kevin Ward Jr. had marijuana in his system have anything to do with Stewart feeling a little better this week? Don't go anywhere. This is the Pit Pass, your personal pass for everything NASCAR, right here on ARN, the Motorsports Authority.
This is ARN, the American Racing Network.
The holidays are right around the corner, and that can only mean one thing. The shopping rush is about to begin. Is your company ready? Are you ready to sell your products online? Are you even selling your products online? If you're not, you need to start doing it. It's time to triple your earning potential by selling your products online. How do you do that? Not with one of those build your own website for free ones. because once you put all your information online, you actually have to pay a bunch of hidden fees in order to get that store activated online. Here's what you do. Log on to Apollo Aesthetics and apolloaesthetics.com in order to request a quote to build that website today. They'll not only get back to you within 48 hours, but they will help you to set up your website, set up your store, and yes, they will help you take any payment online so you can start tripling your business online right now. Log on to Apollo Aesthetics and apolloaesthetics.com to request a quote to build that brand new website. That's apolloaesthetics.com.
Our son, Alan, was a combat medic.
One night in Iraq, his platoon came under heavy fire.
Without any regard for his safety, Alan left a covered position and rushed to the young wounded and was hit himself.
Critically wounded, Alan Babin will require daily care for the rest of his life. Paralyzed Veterans of America is here to help our injured veterans get all the benefits they've earned.
PVA is the voice of wounded veterans.
To support paralyzed veterans, visit pva.org.
Live from the Pit Pass Racing Studios in Southern California, once again, Alan Bailey.
At the Alan Bailey on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram is where you can send tweets and gems. You can also use the hashtag ARNRace, so you can send me little gems like this one from K.A. Chef on Facebook. Okay, yes, it was a tragedy when Kevin Ward Jr. lost his life, but let's face the facts. People die in car accidents daily. Pedestrians get hit and die daily. Accidents happen, there is no one to blame. Don't blame the weed. Don't blame Tony Stewart. Don't blame NASCAR. Nobody but NASCAR and Smoke know if he was drug tested. I imagine if he was tested, maybe it would have been made to take a blood test and breathalyzer tests. Unless he failed, no way he would have been released to the public. It was extremely sad that a young man lost his life, but he's not the first and won't be the last. Racing is dangerous at times, but it may be common sense and safety rules that are in place. Every death also brings good things in racing. Better safety to the track, competitors, and fans. When we lost Kenny Irwin and Adam Petty, the Hans and Hutchison's device were introduced. When Dale died, safer barriers. Racing is always on a learning curve. An accident is an accident. No one to blame. I couldn't agree more. I mean, I really couldn't. Look, is the fact that Kevin Ward, now dead, curving my opinion on this? Yes, of course. Is the fact that he was clearly on a large amount of marijuana according to an autopsy report? Yes, that has a lot to do with it. I think that the marijuana had a huge contributing factor to everything that happened that night. We don't know how it impaired him. There are people in this country left and right that smoke that stuff, left and right, and I'm not going to get into just a big old debate about marijuana on this program. I really don't want to. What I'm going to say is that it is technically illegal, so technically speaking, Kevin Ward Jr. is a criminal. He's a criminal by its very definition. However, if you put that aside, period, you look at this country, and I'm not being naive, I'm going to take my rose-colored glasses off and just explain it to you, and if you have those rose-colored glasses on, so sorry, here's the truth. Marijuana is smoked by a lot of people in this country. A lot of people. It is done illegally by a lot of people. It is done legally by a handful. But more often than not, people are smoking that stuff illegally, and they will continue to smoke it illegally until it is legal. And in which case, they'll still smoke it. It's not going away. It's been here for years and generations, and it will continue to be here for years and generations until one day, sometime in the future, no, I don't know when or care, it will be legal. Bottom line, it affected Kevin Ward. Now, was he the type of person that smoked once or twice and just went with the flow? Who knows? Based on the fact that he smoked a lot, quote-unquote, before getting into a sprint car and racing out there on a Saturday night, I'm going to go ahead and lean towards this is something he's done before. Because if you're a first-time user, you don't do that and then get into a car where you can put yourself and others' lives at danger. I'm assuming Kevin Ward Jr. is not an idiot, but then again, he's the idiot who went out there stoned out of his mind, quote-unquote, and then got in front of moving cars on a racetrack in a black fire suit in the middle of the night on a track that was not very well lit. Those are the facts. That is not me sounding like I'm condemning Kevin Ward Jr. because he's no longer with us, but frankly, I feel really bad for this. I wish this weren't the case, but frankly, there's a reason he died. He was being an idiot. He smoked that weed, got into that race car, and then jumped out onto the racetrack in front of moving cars and got hit by one. Am I saying that it was 100% Kevin Ward Jr.'s fault? No. Am I saying it's Tony Stewart's fault? No. It was an accident. I'm going to say that Kevin Ward Jr. definitely, if you have to put the blame on anybody, and I feel really bad for this, I truly do. I hate condemning the dead, I really do. But frankly, I have to put the blame on Kevin Ward Jr. Tony Stewart wasn't the one who jumped out of his race car. He's not the one who smoked weed. He's not the one who was doing all these stupid things. You look at it, Kevin Ward Jr. did a lot of stupid things that night. A lot of stupid things leading up to his unfortunate and untimely death. I just don't know. I don't like to call Kevin Ward Jr. responsible for his own death, but the fact of the matter is, we're responsible for our own actions. His actions were, I will smoke some weed, I will get behind this car, I will... There was an accident on track between the two. That was one of those racing deals. That was no one's fault. And after that, Kevin Ward, in his stoned rage, got out of his car and ran down the racetrack in front of on-moving cars. What else are we supposed to call this? Are we supposed to just condemn Tony Stewart because he so happens to be rich and famous? Or are we going to go ahead and just say Kevin Ward Jr. is responsible for his own death? He was clearly the idiot in this one, and frankly, what do you expect? He died. It sucks. I wish he hadn't have died. I wish no harm had come to him. But he was the idiot who got stoned and went down on the racetrack. Everyone is afraid to say that in the media right now. Everyone. Everyone's afraid to admit that. It was a horrid, horrid accident. But Kevin Ward Jr. was the one that got stoned, got in a race car, and ran down that racetrack. There was another little gem over the weekend, an open letter from Kevin Ward Jr.'s aunt, Wendy Ward. She released this letter to the public. It was read over the phone to a number of media outlets, including USA Today and ARN, and it was transcribed by USA Today and also our staff here at ARN. It reads, quote, "First and foremost, I want to say, no matter what people think or say, our family does not need others to determine what we feel or know about Kevin Ward Jr. He is our blood, our friend, our champion, always has been, always will be. What I want people to understand are the questions. Why was there not a toxicology report even issued? Seems to me the wrong man was on trial. Tell me why Tony Stewart was not taken in for testing. Why wasn't his car impounded? Tell me how a man the size of Kevin can make a sprint car turn to the right on impact. Tell me how a lap before the incident everything was fine, but the following lap was poor lighting. Tell me how a NASCAR star totally forgot what a caution means. Maybe he should get a different headset so he's able to hear on the radio the car in caution is high to go low. Or he was low until he rounded the corner and saw Kevin Ward standing up for himself. I guess I will never know, and I guess I will never know why all of this was not taken into consideration, or why we will never know why a fellow driver did not check on a young man or his family. Do we know why? I do, because I've seen the video. It's there, and it's real. I can't speak for others. These are my opinions and concerns. I only hope some people take a minute to make sure they have done no wrong before throwing stones. This means nothing to me. But I want to say it is my understanding that pot stays in a person's system days, weeks, possibly months. Rumor was it may not have been legal or prescribed for some patients, so why are these people having their driver's license taken away because it makes you react, supposedly in a certain way? To me, that is not the case. I know it is a mellow person. To me, that is not the case. It's known to mellow a person. We understand the report shows marijuana, but we as a family do not believe he was under the influence or impaired due to the 10 hours prior to the race he spent with family. What we do believe is that maybe people react to certain situations because of anger. I've seen it in NASCAR, sports functions, or even out on our own roads. And yes, these are people who have to pay for their actions. Well, I guess it depends on who you are. And to end this, I've heard time and time again, we just want Kevin's story to get out there. Here you go. Kevin Ward Jr. was an amazing person. His life was wrapped around family, friends, and racing, which he started at age 4. A small town boy having fun until the days turned to years, and then that became his passion in life. The trophies, the plaques, and the pictures that filled his home, garages, workshops show his hard work and dedication to racing, his love for the sport. Through it all, he had the support of his family and friends behind him. He opened his life to our community. As you would go to the shop where he and his dad worked on the car for an upcoming race or after a race, the doors would be wide open, and there would always be people in and out wishing him luck, sharing a story, offering a helping hand, or simply just sitting there to say, "We're here for you, bud." It took a lot of money to live his dream, and as a family, they were able to do that. But not once did he ever think he was better than anyone because he could afford it. That was proven when somewhere around 1,500 people came out to support and comfort us on our darkest day. It shows how many hearts and lives he touched. In the orange, white, and black was torn in honor of our campaign sprint car drivers. It was overwhelming, to say the least. The tracks that have since honored Kevin Ward Jr. with memorial events, his name in Empire Super Sprints, Hall of Fame, and many lives have been changed forever. That is because of one person's love and respect for others. That, to me, is the person that is made of. His smile will forever be what gets us through it. Godspeed, number 13. Aunt Wendy loves you. Unquote. That's the open letter that Kevin Ward's Aunt Wendy Ward issued, and honestly, she's grieving. If your last name is Ward, if you knew Kevin Ward Jr., you're grieving. You're still grieving. And the fact that you're turning on ESPN and you're seeing your son, your friend, your neighbor, your fellow racer on the news being talked about, and Tony Stewart's name is being thrown out there as a possible murder suspect, which, by the way, ESPN, really, really a murder suspect? Yeah, not really. But when you're seeing this constantly in the media, it's very tough. It's very tough. August 9th is when the accident happened. August 10th, Tony Stewart withdrew from the race at Watkins Glen. On the 11th, the sheriff announced that there were no criminal charges pending. August 31st, Tony Stewart returned to racing at Atlanta after missing Michigan and Bristol and Watkins Glen. Now on the 11th, the investigation closed and the information was given to a grand jury. And last week on September 24th, the grand jury decided that Stewart will not face criminal charges. It's obviously the right decision. I'm not a lawyer. I haven't seen all of the evidence, frankly, in this case. I don't think I ever will, to be honest with you. I don't think that all of the evidence will ever be released. However, I truly, truly think that Tony Stewart should not face criminal charges. I don't think that this is purely because Kevin Ward had marijuana in his system and he was believed to be stoned the night of the incident and at the time of his death, but I believe it because this is an accident at its core root value. Looking at Wendy Ward, Kevin Ward's aunt's open letter to the public, I mean, I kind of side with her on a number of things. First off, a lot of people are telling the family, oh, get over it, blah, blah, blah. But, friends, let me tell you, when you lose a son, when you lose a loved one, especially in the way that this was done, you truly have to wonder how long before you can actually forgive. How long before you can actually wake up in the morning and not want to die yourself. I've never experienced, I'm not a father, I've never experienced losing a son, but I can only imagine what the Ward's family is going through right now. I've lost loved ones. I've lost loved ones to cancer. I've lost a loved one to a horrific car accident. Yes, the untimely death is truly, truly heart-wrenching. It's something that will shake you to your core and will continue to affect you on a daily basis. Yes, you want to go after the person that was involved in the accident and blame that person because you want to believe that your loved one can't possibly be responsible. But friends, I gotta tell you, I think Kevin Ward Jr. was highly responsible. It wasn't Tony Stewart that took Kevin Ward and dragged him out of that car, put him on the racetrack, and then hit him with that rear tire. Kevin Ward Jr. got out of that car under his own power, went to, quote, stand up for himself, and somehow thought playing chicken with a sprint car was an excellent idea. Obviously, it cost him his life. It's horrendous. It's sickening. It's disgusting. It's a damn tragedy. But at the same time, we can't sit here and try to skew and go after Tony Stewart, because Tony Stewart isn't the one who put Kevin Ward in that position. Kevin Ward and Tony Stewart were racing each other aggressively, I might add. Was it in Kevin Ward's power to give Tony Stewart a little bit more racing room? Yes, but at the same time, this is racing. You don't have to give anyone anything. So I half blame Kevin Ward Jr. for his own ill-timed death, and I half blame racing accidents. And I also blame accidents in general, because there are racing accidents in which we know we're putting our own lives in danger, and there are accidents in which that's a freak thing. I didn't really expect that. Frankly, if Kevin Ward Jr. somehow didn't succumb to his injuries and die out on that racetrack that night, I would honestly ask him, if he were here today, Kevin, did you honestly not think about the fact that you were stepping onto a racetrack in the path of race cars racing by you? Did that thought not cross your head? I'd be very curious to know what his response would be to that, but we will never know. We will never know. The two people who were the closest to that incident are Kevin Ward Jr., who is no longer with us, and Tony Stewart, who spoke to the media today, really, truly opened up to the media today, and we had a few questions answered. We will play some of Tony Stewart's press conference when we get back. Don't go anywhere. This is the Pit Pass, your personal pass for everything NASCAR, right here on ARN, the Motorsports Authority.
This is ARN, the American Racing Network.
In today's day and age where every phone has a camera in it, everybody thinks they're a photographer. Whether they're putting stuff online on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook, they think they know what they're doing. But when it comes to hiring a professional photographer, you need someone with years of experience and the professional equipment that is necessary in order to capture a professional shot. Not a smartphone with some filter on Instagram. You need a professional with years of experience and photoshopping skills. There's only one place to go, and that's Self-Destruct Photography. Log on to facebook.com/self-destruct photography in order to check out their portfolio of work, plus get in contact with them to set up a date for your photo shoot. Whether you're looking to get some 8x10s done if you're an actor or professional, or if you're looking to get some family photos done to capture a moment forever, or if you need to get some graduation photos done that didn't turn out so great the first time around, or even if you're getting married, call my man Scott because he'll set you up. That's Self-Destruct Photography. Don't miss your shot with Scott. The holiday shopping rush is among us. Is your business ready to start selling online? If you're not, don't build your own website for free. Have a professional help set it up for you and help sell your products online right now. Log on to Apollo Aesthetics and ApolloAesthetics.com in order to request a quote to build that brand new website, set up your hosting, your email, and yes, even your online store to sell your products. Log on to Apollo Aesthetics and ApolloAesthetics.com. Tell them ARN sent you for a special discount. That's ApolloAesthetics.com.
Live from the Pit Pass Racing Studios in Southern California, once again, Alan Bailey.
Tony Stewart was at Stewart Haas Racing earlier today, and he actually had a press conference to talk about a lot of the issues and a lot of the questions that have gone unanswered in concern to his racing accident on August 9th with Kevin Ward Jr., which led to the death of Kevin Ward Jr. Here now is that press conference right here on ARN.
From what I've read, I think he had a really promising career as a sprint car driver. It sounded like he was doing a good job and learning a lot at a young age, so I think he had a lot to look forward to.
Bob Hocker, Sporting News. Do you want to and need to talk to the Ward family to have any sort of closure? And if so, can you talk to them, or are you prepared to that it could be years until all the kind of legal stuff is done for that before you can talk to them?
You know, I think at this point, I want to be available to them if they want to talk about it. At this point, I don't need to talk to them for closure. I know what happened, and I know it was an accident, but, you know, I'm offering to talk to them to help them if it helps them with closure. So, you know, I said it when we were in Atlanta, and I still believe that, you know, I want to be available to them if and when they ever want to talk.
Alan Kalana, NASCAR.com. On the topic of closure, at some point the focus will turn back to your career as a race car driver. Have you thought about when or how that can happen?
Well, I mean, we've been racing since Atlanta, obviously, but it's, you know, it's not been business as usual by any means. You know, and this is going to be a healing process for me. So, you know, it makes you think about a lot of things other than driving race cars. But you know, the one thing that's probably helped me more than anything is being back at the racetrack and being around my racing family, and you know, remembering that I have a passion for what I do. So, you know, that's probably helped me more than anything when it's come to you know, trying to make that next step to move forward.
Jeff Gluck from USA Today. Tony, if you could do anything differently over the past couple months, what would it be?
I'd have stayed at Watkins Glen that night. You know, I do this stuff, and I go run those cars to have a good time, and you know, that's all I wanted to do that night. I wanted to go have fun. I just spent the week at Knoxville, and it gives you the itch, it gives you the desire to want to go race. And you know, it wasn't a big paying race, you know, for sprint car standards. I just wanted to go run my sprint car for a night. So you know, it's I do it to have fun, and it didn't end up being fun that night.
Tony, Tom Jensen, FoxSports.com. How have you been spending the time since the accident happened, and will your routine change now that you've been exonerated?
You know, since we went back to Atlanta, basically I go from the motorhome to the car, and from the car to the trailer, and from the trailer back to the car, and that's literally all I've done since I came back. So, you know, even after Wednesday, here in Charlotte, I haven't left my house. You know, it's just awkward feeling. But, you know, I think now I'll start doing some more things. I mean, I've got a lot of friends that have been supportive through this entire thing. And, you know, there's a lot of people that have shown how much they cared, and it'd be nice to go and visit and talk with those people again.
Louis Frank of Reuters to your left there. Thanks, Tony. Have you reconsidered or considered stopping driving sprint cars as a result of this year and your injury the year before?
At this point, I don't really have I'm not going to say I'm never going to get in one, but when I got hurt, it was as soon as I got healed and as soon as things got settled in with the Cup car, I was set that I was wanting to get in one. But right now, I wouldn't even be able to give you a small idea of if and when I'll ever get back in a car. So at this point, I mean, I won't be in one for a while.
Yeah.
Beth Bernstein, New York Times. The life of a driver and an owner is extremely busy. Press conferences, commercials, appearances, fan things. You haven't done, have you done much of that, and when will you think you get back to that life?
I haven't done any since the accident, and I think after talking with you guys today, we'll start getting back into doing meet and greets and appearances again. I think it's important for me to do that, and to take. I think that's another step of making forward progress, is getting back to trying to resume what was at best a normal life before this. So I think it's important for me to do that and to get back to doing it as soon as possible.
Marty Smith, ESPN. Tony, what has been the biggest change within you and the biggest impact upon you as a result of this past month and a half?
I honestly think that, when you're, and I'm not going to speak for professional athletes in different forms of sports, but, as a race car driver, that's driving a race car, that's all that consumed my life. It's all I thought about, it's all I cared about, and everything else was second on down the list of priorities for me. And I think this has given me the opportunity to sit there and think about other aspects of my life and what they really are going to mean to me in the future. And not that I don't love what I do, because I do love it, but it's not, just like you guys, it's not what all we do all the time. There's more things to our life than what we have as a profession. So, it's made me think about some of those other aspects of my life that kind of have been put on hold for years.
I'm going to go back to the TV row, Marty, and then to the middle.
Marty Snyder, NBC Sports. How would you characterize the weeks at home, Tony, following the accident? You basically were in seclusion. What was that like for you to have to go through that, and what did you do?
I didn't really do much of anything, to be perfectly honest. I think the first 3 days that I was home, I really didn't do anything. I didn't get out of bed. I didn't care if I took a shower. I left my room to go get food, and that you almost had to make yourself eat. So it's, the first 3 or 4 days I didn't want to talk to anybody, didn't want to see anybody, I just wanted to be by myself. And but you finally get up, you finally start moving around a little bit, and every day got a little bit easier, but it was a big drastic change from what I was used to, for sure. But you didn't have any desire to do anything. You just all you thought about was what had happened, and asking yourself why did this happen. And so you just sat there for an entire days on end, sitting there asking questions and trying to come to terms with what happened and why it happened.
Kyle McCurry, My Fox Carolinas. I was at Loudon a couple of weeks ago, and Jimmy Johnson talked about how people are starting to take sides. And I'm wondering, during this process, with things coming out on Twitter or people making comments in the media, did you keep yourself insulated from that, or did you follow any of it, and how did that impact the time that you weren't at the track?
I tried to do my best to insulate myself from that, but I finally started reading what was out there and what people were saying, and you can't control that. Last Wednesday the facts came out, and people still through the weekend, the same people that had the same opinion before the facts came out still have the same opinion, and no matter what side they think about. But to me, it's worthless to pick sides. It's not about picking sides. A young man lost his life, and I don't care what side you're on. That it doesn't change that. His family's in mourning. I'm in mourning. My family's in mourning. It's picking sides isn't solving or fixing anything. It's a waste of time to pick sides. Instead of honoring a young man that had a promising racing career. People are picking sides and throwing. It's like watching people throw darts at each other. It's disappointing at this point, honestly, because instead of supporting each other, and the racing community is such a strong family that it's dividing people that on a daily basis would help each other, and there's no point in it. It doesn't solve anything. It doesn't fix anything, and at the end of the day, it's not going to make anybody feel any better about it. It's just people that everybody's entitled to their opinion, and we know that, but everybody, and I've seen this for the last 7 weeks now. Everybody has made their decision and picked their side off of 100% of the information that they got, which is about 10% of all the information that's truly out there. And we all do it. Our society does it. We do it every day. Whatever we see on the news, we make our decision as people about what we see. But it's not, I don't think any of us every day about whatever topic it is we're trying to come to a conclusion about ever get all the facts, and you know, so you understand why people think the way they do, but I think more than not, I don't think people realize that, you know, that there's more information out there than what we all get on a daily basis about whatever it is. I guess it was more disappointing to me than anything. You know, and even from people that were supportive of us. I mean, listening to and reading comments about, you know, the sheriff's department and the district attorney. You know, they did a good job of taking the time that they needed to do to get all the facts and to come to a very thought out conclusion to this. And you want to sit there and tell people, hey, let them do their job. And but it just shows how passionate people are. I mean, if they were on our side or on Kevin's family side, I mean, they were passionate about that, and that's something I don't want to see go away. I don't want to see people lose their passion, but I think people need to understand that there were a lot more facts that they didn't understand and haven't seen.
Doug Rice, Performance Racing Network. Hey, Tony. Obviously, the season is moving on. Yesterday, Kevin Harvick, great run. Kurt Busch, not as great. How much have you let yourself be engaged in that side of the process right now, as far as being the steward of Stewart-Haas Racing?
I've let my team down from that standpoint. I haven't been able to you know, I've been a little bit of a cheerleader, but that's about all I've been able to contribute here the last 7 weeks. It's just, you know, like we mentioned earlier, it's been hard for me to just function day to day, and, you know, there hasn't been anything normal about my life the last 7 weeks, so it's been very hard to try to do anything to be productive to help those guys. It's you know, you try to be a cheerleader, you try to keep them pumped up about what they're doing, but other than that, I haven't been able to contribute too much.
Eric Phillips from WSOC TV. Just wondering, you talk about being in seclusion and all that has meant. What does today represent for you? Having us all here, you called us all here together. What does today represent for you in terms of going forward?
Well, you know, we knew everybody had questions, and we knew that everybody was going to want answers to what's going on, but you know, I think more than anything, it was we wanted to be able to tell everything from the beginning, but it's you know, like I learned Wednesday, everybody's got their opinions about what happens, and obviously the facts didn't matter to a lot of those people. They still have their opinions one way or the other, but you know, we haven't let anybody know what's been going on the last 6 weeks. I mean, we just kind of went through the motions as far as we're concerned, and you know, we knew a lot of you would have questions about what's been going on the last 6-7 weeks and how have we handled it.
Marty Smith, ESPN. Tony, what was it like to learn from the district attorney that in the toxicology report Kevin Ward was under the influence?
Honestly, for me, it didn't change anything. To me, a young driver lost his life out of it. It didn't matter why or what was going on. The end result was the same. And no matter what was said, it was still a tragic accident. So, I know in my heart that it was 100% an accident, and that detail didn't mean anything to me personally.
Tony, Scott Fowler from the Charlotte Observer. You mentioned earlier the awkward feeling that has come over you the past 7 weeks. Can you explain that a little more, and also talk about, will that ever go away given that Kevin Ward has passed away and that will not change?
It's just been awkward because I know what a typical day was like for me, and the things that were on my agendas for each day and what I thought about, and you kind of get in that pattern, and this was something that obviously changed that pattern drastically. So everything you thought about, everything you worked on, you stopped thinking about, you stopped working on, and this is all you thought about. And ask me the second part again. I think it will, and the reason I say that is, I've had other people that I've known for years that have come to me and told me personal stories of tragedies that have happened in their life that a lot of us don't know about, and their experiences and their advice really has hit home for me, and I do believe as time goes on, it will be different every day. It may, I don't know if it'll ever get back to normal, but it will get better.
Louis Franco, Reuters. Tony, since getting back in a car, rate your performance as a driver.
Well, I could rate it before and after almost the same. I mean, my year hasn't been a stellar year by any means. When we came back, we had a decent day, started at Atlanta, and had an incident that derailed it. But I think yesterday was probably the best overall race from start to finish that we've ran. Probably one of the best ones this year that we've actually ran. I mean, I struggled on restarts. I couldn't get going very good the first 3 or 4 laps, but it seemed like after 10 laps or 15 laps, we were settling into a pace that was a top 5 race car. So, we didn't have any major dramas on either side during the whole race. We actually put a whole race together, and I know a 14th or 15th place finish isn't anything to brag about, but considering the way our season's been, I mean, we finally put together a whole day that was consistent, and that meant a lot to us.
That's some of the Tony Stewart press conference from earlier today out at Stewart Haas Racing. It's Tony Stewart addressing the media, really talking about everything that's happened post-accident in depth ever since he came back to racing at Atlanta on August 31st. It's been about a month that he's been back at the track, and really, Tony was never back at the track, really. I mean, he's very distracted. He's not really doing any interviews or talking to anybody. He's just kind of talks to his crew and goes to his motorhome, and that's that. He's still clearly suffering depression. He's still clearly dealing with this in the best way he can, yet at the same time, it's not business as usual, as Tony Stewart said right there. What we'll do now is we'll go ahead and we will take our final break here. When we get back, we will talk about the final round, or excuse me, about the first round of the 2014 Chase for the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series being in the books, and the fact that A.J. Allmendinger, Kurt Busch, Greg Biffle, and Eric Almirola no longer in the chase, as we've gone from 16 to 12 drivers. Don't go anywhere. This is the Pit Pass, your personal pass for everything NASCAR, right here on ARN, the Motorsports Authority.
This is ARN, the American Racing Network.
The holidays are right around the corner, and that can only mean one thing. The shopping rush is about to begin. Is your company ready? Are you ready to sell your products online? Are you even selling your products online? If you're not, you need to start doing it. It's time to triple your earning potential by selling your products online. How do you do that? Not with one of those build your own website for free ones, because once you've put all your information online, you actually have to pay a bunch of hidden fees in order to get that store activated online. Here's what you do. Log on to Apollo Aesthetics and ApolloAesthetics.com in order to request a quote to build that website today. They'll not only get back to you within 48 hours, but they will help you to set up your website, set up your store, and yes, they will help you take any payment online so you can start tripling your business online right now. Log on to Apollo Aesthetics and ApolloAesthetics.com to request a quote to build that brand new website. That's ApolloAesthetics.com.
Not all criminals carry a gun or a knife. Some simply need to pick up the phone or ring a doorbell. In times like these, senior citizens are often the targets of con artists, hawking shady investment deals and phony charities. Be wary of strangers in your neighborhood soliciting services or asking for money. Many cons come in the way of phony home repair services. These thieves offer major home repairs at bargain prices, but they end up taking your money and never finishing the work. Don't become a victim. Be skeptical of offers that are too good to be true. Never allow anyone to force you to sign something, and never give personal information to people you don't know. Get estimates and never pay in advance. If you suspect fraud, get the contractor's license plate number and call the police immediately. If something doesn't seem right, it's probably not. Protect yourself. Visit ncpc.org to learn more. A message from the U.S. Department of Justice, National Crime Prevention Council, and the Ad Council.
And now it's time for the Weekend Top 5, powered by Apollo Aesthetics. And as we take you out to the Monster Mile and Sin City for the truck race, we start with what was a scary moment at number 5.
So you see some smiles there on the gas man from Kyle Larson's 42 team. Smiling now, but not when this happened. Watch him a minute ago when the car left the pit road.
Scary moment number 4.
Fifth win at Dover, fifth win of this season. Kyle Busch gets the checkered flag.
Number 3.
Teammates doing battle. Eric Jones now in front of Darrell Wallace Jr. with 13 to go. What a day for Kyle Busch. Won the nationwide race at Dover. And now in his hometown, his truck's going to finish 1-2. Eric Jones, checkered flag. He does it tonight in Las Vegas.
Number 2.
He should be very careful. Notice the situation that he's in right now. The range of emotions that he's gone through this day. And with the loose wheel having to come in, you think that you're out of it, having to make another stop to get you more than 3 laps down, and then having things fall your way and getting you back in this position. You just have to stay in the moment and do your job.
Casey Kane finishes in 20th position. And Kane advances as the last driver through the cut.
And number 1.
2001. The last time Jeff won at this racetrack. He won the championship in that 2001 year, winning on all the same tracks he's won on this year. Checkered flag at Dover today for Jeff Gordon. Gordon's through with a win at the Monster Mile.
What are you doing the statement, boys? That's what I'm talking about. Heck yeah.
Live from the Pit Pass Racing Studios in Southern California, once again, Alan Bailey.
At the Alan Bailey on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Also, use the hashtag ARNRace to get in on this conversation as well. Want to talk about the actual chase. We've talked about Tony Stewart for a majority of the program, played a lot of the press conference from earlier today at Stewart-Haas Racing. Lots of questions that have gone answered and lots of interesting stuff. You can listen to the full press conference and watch Tony Stewart at the press conference on arnrace.com. It is one of the top stories right now on arnrace.com right now. Let's look at the 4 drivers who were eliminated from the chase after this contender round. They are Allmendinger, Kurt Busch, Biffle, and Amarola. You look at A.J. Allmendinger. He came into Dover. He came to Dover 10th in the standings, and thanks to a 13th place finish last week at New Hampshire, but he started 28th, and it didn't really help the chances of him to actually, get into it. Midway through the race on Sunday, Allmendinger at one point was 1 point behind the final transfer spot, but ultimately fell a couple of points back and never really got there. He lost a lap around lap 45, literally 45 laps into that race. He lost a lap, and Allmendinger never really got it back. He caught a break right there when Stenhouse kissed the wall on lap 75. He got the free pass, but Allmendinger remained pretty much on the outside looking in and just never really got back in there. And you could hear it. He got out of the car and he said, "Yeah, we sucked." He's frustrated. He wants the team to do good. He wants to do good, but he knows that there's a glass ceiling that team is hitting. Is it the resources? Is it the personnel? Is it a little bit of everything? Who knows? But clearly that team not firing on all cylinders, and frankly, they had a great race at Watkins Glen, not taking away from that, but everything else has just been kind of a downward spiral kind of year. Frankly, you look at Kurt Busch, he had a great race at Martinsville earlier this year, but that was back in April. Pretty much his season has just been kind of not there. He hasn't been firing on all cylinders. At the beginning part of the year, he came out of the gate really strong, but I think the effects of having a four-car organization before they were actually ready really hit Stewart-Haas Racing. I mean, Kurt's car really has never been super stellar on all these racetracks, and same thing this weekend, just not really there. I mean, he has work cut out for him. He finished 36th last week in New Hampshire, and really, he really, and an 8th place finish at Chicago, and was hanging on because of, everything else, but it wasn't there. He was tight for the first 100 laps. He was never really in contention by my accounts. You look at Greg Biffle, he came into Sunday 6 points out of that 12th. He started 27th, but really he couldn't get anywhere else. He moved up 13 positions, but he couldn't maintain that momentum, and it's been a very frustrating season for Greg Biffle. He's gone 50 races since his last victory, and no better in any 10 of his last starts. I mean, including his 23rd at Chicagoland and 16th at New Hampshire. It's just mismanageable. You can't be finishing outside the top 10, outside the top 15, and expect to seriously contend for a chase. You can't finish outside the top 5 without actually seriously contending for this championship. Sorry. You look at Eric Almirola, he's a long shot. He's the underdog of underdogs. You look at Richard Petty Motorsports, they had a legitimate shot at Dover, but their cars have shown decent speed there in the past, but the 43 failed to mount a charge. They started 21st, they slipped 28th, they lost 3 laps, 18 points out of 12th. It just never was really there. It was bad, to put it bluntly. And really, one has to question, maybe they just weren't ready for the chase this year, but I'll argue, are they ever going to be? I don't think so. Richard Petty Motorsports has sucked ever since the 70s, sorry to say. Yeah, in the early 80s, they were okay, but really, you look at 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, when Richard was still driving, they were okay. They weren't great. They weren't winning races left and right because, well, teams started going to every single race. So Richard Petty Motorsports kind of had their work cut out for them there, and that really didn't work out in their favor. But I don't know. Eric Almirola, they literally lucked into a win at Daytona, of all places. And what do you want? They stayed out on a caution and actually held track position under green for a few laps, and when the rain came, NASCAR decided, we'll throw them a bone. No, we won't finish this race tomorrow, and we'll give this car a win, because it'd be cool to say the 43 car won at Daytona 30 years after Richard Petty last won a race. Yeah, it was very cool. It's cool to say, but guess what? Just because NASCAR decided to give them a win doesn't mean that they need to be in the chase, and doesn't necessarily mean that they actually deserve to be in the chase. Sorry. I'm being honestly blunt here. I mean, the great driver, great organization. I wish them all the best, but they just never really had anything there. You can't tell me otherwise. You seriously can't tell me otherwise. Kansas this weekend. Here's where I don't want to say the gloves are off, because that's kind of a cliche thing to say, but really, this is where everything starts to ratchet up a little bit. The points are tied. Literally, everybody's tied for that top spot. Keselowski, Logano, Harvick, Johnson, Gordon, Busch, Kyle Busch, Earnhardt, Kenseth, Newman, Edwards, Hamlin, and Kane. Those 12 drivers are your chase contenders. And seriously, the thought process is, well, I'm looking at it, and I'm being 100% honest here. The 4 guys who I still think are going to go into Homestead battling for a championship are, in this order, Keselowski, Gordon, Logano, Harvick. Those are the 4 best drivers. I'm not writing out Jimmy Johnson because he could show us something, but frankly, this is not the same organization that we've seen out of them ever. We've never seen this team run this badly at this point in the year. Usually this is the point when they're firing on all cylinders, and oh, by the way, keep in mind they finished 3rd over this last weekend. But in a house that, if there was ever a house besides Charlotte that I can call the Jimmy Johnson house, this was anything but. This was just a very poor attempt at just a race, and it was not a good situation at all. It was pretty bad. But on that note, that's going to do it for this edition of the Pit Pass. Want to remind you that you can listen in to Shifting Gears. New time, Thursday, 2 p.m. Pacific. That is 5 p.m. Eastern, right here on ARN and ARNrace.com. For everybody here at the American Racing Network, I'm Alan Bailey. We'll see ya at the track.
Broadcasting from the ARN Racing Studios in Southern California, ARN, Los Angeles. This is ARN, the American Racing Network.